Hello everyone, this is Rob and welcome back to Meteorness and this time a classic movie review, something I haven't done yet. If you are a follower of my channel and like what I do, please consider liking this video and commenting below or contacting me privately on my Facebook via the link in the description. That's welcome to anyone, actually. Also, if you'd be so kind and if this is your first time watching me, please consider subscribing to my channel and becoming part of my YouTube family. I'd love to have you. I do have a Patreon listed in the description below. It is almost active. I'm adding some additional perks to that at the current time and getting that more accessible for everyone. You can view what's currently available, however, and give me any feedback you like on that. Also, consider clicking the bell icon to be notified of any additional uploads. So, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I haven't really found a lot of reviews of this film, or even just breakdowns or feedback at all. Nothing that was really tangible in my mind. So that's why I'm doing this video. And it is on, hang on one second, Eddie and the Cruisers. This is the double Blu-ray, which consists of the original film and the sequel, which I will cover in a separate video as well. Both movies are really, really good. I will say that. Are they flawed? Yes. Are they musically, historically accurate? Absolutely not. But they are well written and well performed films by everyone involved. Eddie and the Cruisers itself, the original film, tells the story of Eddie and his band through the various members of the band in flashback format. And it really works rather well, in my opinion. The only gripe I have with it is that you really don't have a context necessarily for when these events are occurring in the time frame in which they are occurring. For example, we're introduced to Frank, the keyboard player of the Cruisers, and he's being subtly interviewed by a journalist for a TV piece on Eddie, Eddie Wilson and Eddie and the Cruisers to celebrate their re-release of their classic album Tender Years. And she's also trying to get a hold of the unreleased album Season in Hell, which was the follow-up. So she talks to Frank, and Frank really doesn't want to answer her questions, but he reminisces about the first time he met Eddie Wilson and the Cruisers when he was working cleaning a bar in the evening, and he makes a suggestion, musically speaking, and Eddie, being a person that wanted to try new things and new ideas and push the envelope of creativity, tells him he could stay. which is kind of a open for interpretation statement, but flashes back to the present, and we gradually get introduced to more of the band as Frank either gets contacted by them or contacts them himself. And he is curious as to why these tapes of this unreleased album are so sought after, considering the record label had rejected the album when it was first presented to them in the early 60s. But that remains a mystery, and the film has us all going along with the characters, not really knowing anything other than what they know. And I feel that that's a strong point of this film because it really doesn't give away anything about who may or may not be after the tapes aside from the journalist. And it sets things up in a very mysterious manner to where you don't know what to think at certain points. The music is performed by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. I want to clarify that because a lot of people seem to think that Michael Pare, the star of the movie who played Eddie Wilson, did his parts on his own. He did not in either film. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band recorded the music for both soundtracks, 1 and 2. And the songs are really well done. Of course, the soundtrack album for the first film and the film itself yielded a relatively large hit for John Cafferty in the form of the song On the Dark Side. They also had another single off the album called Tender Years. But the best song, in my opinion, on the original soundtrack is a song called Wild Summer Nights. And you only really hear it twice in the film. And it's only a piece. You hear it once on the radio as Frank is pulling into the parking lot of a school where he teaches poetry at the very beginning of the film. And you hear it later on in the film, presumably after the Tender Years album has been released and been successful. Because that's kind of one of those areas that's a gray area. We get the fact that Eddie wants to create new music and new sound. And there are a lot of sort of gray areas. When the album is being presented to the people at Satin Records for them to review, and they hear Season in Hell, which is the second album, they reject it, but you're kind of like left wondering, well, where did the recording of the second album start, and where did the recording of the first album end? That's something that's never really covered, and it doesn't have to be. It's a mystery. The movie is just that, and it's enjoyable on those levels. If you are a musician by chance, or at all knowledgeable about musical instruments, how they're played, how they work, sound editing, sound engineering. I'm going to warn you, you have to turn your brain off for this film because it will piss you off. It's very, very 80s sounding as far as the songs go in the production aspect. Um, it was patterned, the music was patterned after Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. So you have a sort of early 80s Springsteen sound to these songs with the saxophone and the guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. Very simplistic, setup, but if it was done differently, if it was done in a little bit more of a raw fashion, it'd be more believable that this material was recorded back in the 60s. When in fact, it's a fictional film. So this music was recorded in the 80s. It's a good film, though. And all the actors really do a good job of convincingly playing their parts and making you believe that these events actually happened and that the events that are currently happening in the film are currently happening in the film. It really kind of leads you into this world of a suspension of disbelief in terms of this is actually occurring and did occur. And on that note, it did have a lot of people wondering at the time of its release, and more so the time it aired on HBO, which is what made this movie more successful and more widely accepted. And that's the fact that everything is presented in a very believable manner. And to those who are not musically inclined, they are sort of misled to believe that this was an actual historical band. On that note, I actually have a story related to that. When I was in college, there was a record store in my downtown college area that I frequented, um, the Gallery of Sound. We have a couple locations in the area still, but there was another location in downtown at that point. And I was there looking for something on CD. I don't remember what. But these people came in, like 3 or 4 people, and they asked where they could find Eddie and the Cruisers, Tender Years, and Season in Hell, because they wanted to buy both albums. And the guy at the counter who knew music was politely dismissive, saying, "Well, their soundtrack. There's a soundtrack. That's all there is. There's 2 soundtracks, one for each film." And they kept harping on, where are these albums? And he's trying to tell them, I'm sorry, these albums don't exist. And they wouldn't believe him. So a certain populace was led to believe that these albums actually did exist. And it it did a good job of conveying the reality in the film. If you're not particularly musically knowledgeable, if you are musically knowledgeable, you will hear the distortion on the guitars, you will hear the digital delay on the vocals, and you will hear the very 80s sounding production, and you will know that this was not recorded in the early 1960s by any means. And it doesn't surprisingly, though, for me at least, it doesn't detract from the charm of the film, as the story sort of overrides any slightly questionable choices in terms of sound. So, I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but I will say that we're told in flashbacks that Eddie's second album was rejected, and his girlfriend, Joanne, who is a backup singer for the Cruisers, goes with him after he leaves the studio, and he basically forces her out of the car. And it leads up to this tense moment. And you're left wondering, well, you know, is what happened just what happened? So, I urge anyone who hasn't seen this film, if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of talking cats, as you hear right now, hello, 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 honey. If you're a fan of music and good movies with good storytelling, excellent direction, and superb acting, not to mention convincingly accurate lip syncing by Michael Pare in terms of his interpretation of John Cafferty's performance audio, you will definitely like this film. It is available to stream, I believe, on Amazon. It's also available in this handy 2 Blu-ray. Yeah, it's one Blu-ray. Sorry, one Blu-ray with 2 films on it. Eddie and the Cruisers 1 and 2. Let's see if we can get that more in frame. There we go. So you do get both films on one Blu-ray, and they're also available on DVD. And it's just a movie that has a good story. And I urge anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it. I will be covering the second film, the sequel, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. Spoiler! Eddie Lives! As if the title didn't give it away. Wow. But that will be for next time. I hope you've enjoyed this video, this review of a classic film. And I hope I didn't give away too much. And I hope I didn't rob you of anything that you were wanting to know. I will urge you to watch this film on your own. I will leave the trailer to the film in the description. That way you can see the trailer and decide for yourself whether or not this film is right for you. Also, check out the soundtrack, in particular the song Wild Summer Nights. Amazing, amazing song. It should have gotten a lot more attention at the time of the movie's release, and sadly it did not. So, this is Rob with Media Awareness. Please be sure to click the like button, share this video with a friend, and comment below, and just check out everything you want. You can check out the rest of my videos on my channel. I cover a plethora of different topics and material, so have a blast. And I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.